fight Thanos. Okay.
And what a year Marvel's rounding off after WandaVision, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and now we're on to Hawkeye, and we've got Spider-Man to look forward to as well. So I'm going to be talking about the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye, Hide and Seek and Never Meet Your Heroes. So spoiler alert if you haven't seen them. As always, this is the Geek in Review. So after over a decade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hawkeye is finally getting a story which I suppose some people must have asked for. And he's here with all the slow-mo arrow shots that you could want. And we're probably going to get a lot more as well, let's be honest. So what's the setup here, you ask? Well, it does go back a little bit to, as I say, Hawkeye's origins in the MCU. We see the attack on New York in 2012 from a young Kate Bishops' point of view, and I'll get to her in a moment. But we get to see her watch Hawkeye do his sort of Hawkeye thing with the arrows, and he doesn't, well, I suppose he does save her, but she's certainly inspired by him and decides to sort of follow in his footsteps. But at least I suppose they weren't retconning it like that kid in Iron Man 2 that's supposed to be Peter Parker. And you can see that her folks aren't getting along before the attack in New York happens, so I guess she's going to be looking for a parental figure that she's probably going to find along the way in this show. But one thing I do love about Marvel that they've been doing since Endgame is showing you things from other people's point of view. In fact, even before that, you've seen Peter Parker's point of view of Civil War at the start of Spider-Man Homecoming, when you've seen the video that he recorded on the way to Berlin with Happy. And I like when we get to see flashbacks like this, so we get to see what it's like to be a civilian, although albeit a very rich civilian because our house is absolutely huge, what their point of view of the attack was like back in 2012. But after the What If scene where Hawkeye jumped into the pit of Ultrons, it's good to see him be a little bit cinematic in live action as well. But the start of the show does feel like it's more her show than his, I have to say, even before we're at the credits. But then when it opens up, she's at Professor X's mansion. Well, not really, but imagine that. But she's doing something, she's up some sort of trick when Arrow at university. It's never really fully explained what she's up to or why, but we do get callbacks to Jeremy Renner on the roof in the Avengers, and there's quite a few callbacks in sort of point of view scenes that are reenactments or sort of replays of scenes that we've seen before. And it picks up with our hero Hawkeye, Clint Barton himself, sitting through Steve Rogers the musical. And my first question is, who are they paying for the rights to this? I mean, who's getting paid? Is it Sam Wilson? I don't think so, because he seemed to be a little bit short of cash when it came to his own show. So that's why it's called Steve Rogers the musical and not Captain America, because Captain America Sam Wilson would sue those asses. But I did think this was really funny, and I can see there being a campaign for the music to actually get released. It was a lot more sort of high budget than I thought, but it is a Disney Marvel show after all. But watching your own journey in a musical must be pretty weird. And they could have had Lou Ferrigno as a Hulk, but they've got a guy in a green hoodie as well. And one thing that I did really love is that Captain America shield does look pretty cheap and cheerful. It just looks like a giant plastic frisbee rather than the actual real art. And the whole show is setting Clint up to be in a sort of reflective point in his life. But after the musical, he goes to dinner with his kids and he doesn't take them to the shawarma joint that they went to at the end of the Avengers. I mean, that for me seemed like another missed opportunity with the Lou Ferrigno thing, but whatever. And it seems that he's trying to reconnect with everything in his family after the snap and everyone coming back, or I should say the blip and everyone coming back. But they don't really mention these sort of huge worldwide events that everyone's just come back and repopulate, well, not repopulate, but you know what I mean, try to pick up where they've left off. They hinted at it a little bit in the last Spider-Man film, and I wish that Marvel would explore this, because it would be some really great stories that you could tell without the real need for superheroes, about people trying to fit back into their lives after being gone for 5 years. But we now pick up with the older Kate Bishop and her mum's just giving her an exposition dump about her past. Now, I'm not familiar with Hawkeye or Kate Bishop in the comics, did do a little bit of background research for this show, but there's not really a whole lot to go on. But I've mentioned it in previous videos, in fact several of them, that Marvels are keying up for at least the young or the next Avengers. We've got hints of this in the Captain America and Falcon show as well, and we're probably going to get it in other Marvel properties going forward. But Kate decides to go to a party with her mum and meets Armand Duquesne. Now, what's going on with all these rich people? There's rumours that Kingpin from the Daredevil series is going to pop up in this show, and this does feel exactly like the world where he'd fit in. Our mum seems to have some sort of arrangement with a host, and Kate decides to investigate, and it turns out there's some sort of illegal auction going on under the house, a bit like that last Jurassic World film, but not as shit. Although they are selling dinosaur skulls, so I suppose that kind of is shit in a way. If you buy one, you are a shit. But after the dinosaur bones, it turns out they're selling Avengers artifacts, and this is things that has been discovered in the rubble of Endgame when the Avengers building was destroyed. And this again is a great thread that Marvel should pick up. They done it in the first Spider-Man film with what happened with all the tech that was left over from the Battle in New York, and just give us a damage control series already, please. So one of the items that shows up is Clint's Ronin sword and outfit when he was on his own between Infinity War and Endgame. Again, they never really gave us too much backstory on this, so this series is definitely going to fill it out. But before someone can buy the outfit, the auction gets robbed and raided, and they're after some kind of watch that they mention. Kate takes on the Ronin outfit and she kicks ass, of course, and this is what the sort of confusion is here, is that people think that she is Ronin, so that she was Clint, who was going after all those gangsters for all those years. And I can see why there'd be a lot of scores to settle, but I'll get to that later on. Now, the dog that we've seen featured heavily in the market, and I'm sure is going to be a toy at some point, does pop up straight away, and he steals the key to lot 268, which says the Avengers on it, so it must be something big that these guys want to get hold of. Clint sees the robbery on the news and that someone is running around in his old Ronin outfit, and he goes after her. Well, he doesn't know it's her at the time, but he goes after her to, one, to get his outfit back, to two, to save her, because he knows how dangerous these people are and what the sort of stuff that he's done. Hopefully we will get to see a lot more of what Clint was up to in some flashbacks in this series. But while he's trying to hunt her down, she's trying to get more details on what was going on at the auction. So she goes to Duquesne's house where she finds out that he's dead. She manages to get away before the cops show up, but lo and behold, she runs into a gang that's after Clint. And of course, this is where he shows up to save the day, yada yada yada. You get her backstory, she's eager to learn from him, but he doesn't really seem particularly thrilled to take on the mentor role. He just wants to sit back to make sure that there's no connection tying her to the outfit, which of course there is. And then they get into a fight with these sort of tracksuit mafia, which is pretty funny. I'm not sure if they're from the comic books, I kind of hope that they are. I'd like to see more of them on screen, but this is the kind of light-hearted stuff that we're going to get on Disney Plus compared to the darker shows that we got, like Loki, which did have its playful moments, but this show feels like it's going to be a lot more tongue-in-cheek. They always keep mentioning how many days it is away from Christmas, so it does seem like there's a total countdown or timer on this season. But after the fight and they manage to escape, we do get a little bit of what it must have been like for Clint when he was on the run as Ronin. He doesn't have any of Tony Stark, Iron Man or Captain America's resources, he's just got himself. So he's either got to plan ahead or hide out. And it's nice to see him using these other skills that don't just involve shooting, but I do wonder, are we going to get to see him shoot a gun in this series? I don't know if Disney Plus would let him away with it, but Hawkeye with a gun would be pretty lethal compared to a bow and arrow. So they hide out in Kate's auntie's house, and he's got to go back and get the suit because the gang that was after him have set fire to Kate's apartment. Now, before he can get the suit, a fireman manages to pick it up who is into LARPing, which if you don't know is live action role playing. I'm not going to describe what it is, just Google it. And the second episode really does get a bit more into who the core of Hawkeye is, not Clint, because it's all about his image. We've seen that he wasn't particularly focused that heavily in the musical at the start, and he does get recognised a little bit throughout the series, but not everywhere that he goes. I mean, he's in Times Square at one point and no one really seems to notice him. And Kate mentions this when they hook back up, that he's not really got the best marketing compared to someone like Captain America, who's an iconic hero, and apparently, if you believe the trailer, going to replace the Statue of Liberty in Spider-Man No Way Home. And this is a fair point, and this has been a criticism of Marvel and how they've handled Hawkeye on screen since day one. I'll be honest and say, when he showed up in the first Thor film and then he showed up again in the Avengers, I don't think they had a long-term plan for this guy. And they've just kind of... because we've never seen him without a team or without one of his friends, so it'll be good to see when he's on his own. It might have a little bit of a Bourne Identity feel, because Jeremy Renner's already done that role. But at some point he's just got to realise that he is just the Arrow guy, and I think he is trying to part ways with that identity. He does really want to seem to settle down and get back into a normal life, which he's talked about in previous Avengers films as well. So Kate goes back to her mum's, and we find out that her mum owns Bishop Security, which is seems to be at least a national, probably multinational security firm. But Clint does have to go after the suit, so he shows up to the LARPing event, and it was good to see him out of his element, and I thought the "I thought Thanos" line was absolutely great as well. But it was a little bit odd that not everyone recognised them here, because you think these are the people that are pretending to be characters, so surely there should be some sort of recognition. I don't know. I just felt it was a little bit odd, but I did really enjoy the fun element of this. And the rest of the episode is just setting up the dynamic for the rest of the season between Kate and Clint. I'm not going to get into too many spoilers for the second episode because it's a little bit more fun, and I think that that's what this show's main theme is going to be. Not only are we going to get the backstory of Clint and his family and maybe what he was up to in Ronin when we didn't see him on screen, but it's just going to be fun. It's just going to be like a kind of fun Christmas romp, and it's not meant to be taken too seriously. But in saying that, I do wonder how they're going to introduce Kingpin, if you believe the rumours, because he is a very dark and violent character if you watch Daredevil, so I don't think that'll be fully carried over, but as always it's going to be very interesting to see. And one detail that I did notice that I think is a little bit odd that no one mentioned is where the hell is Stark or the Avengers Tower. I guess they've dismantled it, and I didn't see any Oscorp buildings there either. So, because it was at the end of the last Spider-Man film, so I don't know if it's going to show up in the next one. That's something to keep an eye on. But let me know what you think of the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye if you've watched them in the comments below, or you can follow me on Twitter @TheGeeksReviews. My name's Al, thanks for watching, and if you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot.